My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the north, general of the Felix legions, loyal servant to the true emperor Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. Welcome, everyone, to John Webster Film. We're talking, if you hadn't guessed it already, Gladiator. I am here with this is a special treat today because I have my Here Be Dragons co-hosts. I have Nessie, or Nessimus Maximus, and Stephen Stark. Welcome, guys. It's so great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, John.
Yeah, great to be here, John.
So yeah, it's funny because this is the one stream where I haven't even laid out a semblance of an outline because I just love this movie so much to where I feel like we're just going to, go off on all kinds of, tangents and just gush about, how great it is and how much we love it. And, there is so much to talk about, but let's start off just by your experiences first seeing the film. Whoever wants to go first.
Nessie, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. I'm sure, John, you saw it in the theater. Of course you did. I first saw it, I think it was running on HBO the first time. And it was so good. I love the cinematography. I love the topic. I mean, it's ancient Rome. It's that's my meat and potatoes, bread and butter. It's my favorite thing. Gladiator films, Russell Crowe, all-star cast, blockbuster, everything. And it was just such a wonderful experience. I watched it. I watched it and then I immediately watched it again. So that was my first experience.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I don't remember the first time I watched it. I probably rented it from Blockbuster or something like that. But instant classic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I do remember I saw it in the theaters.
Yeah, big surprise.
No one is surprised.
Well, it's funny because I wasn't really all that interested in the movie when I first saw the previews, because it came off to me more like it was going to be just a straight summer action blockbuster than something deeper. And I remember when I first started seeing reviews for the film, and everybody was going on about Russell Crowe and how he was a shoo-in for Best Actor, later on down the line at the Oscars. And I was like, oh, wow, this might be something more to this than I originally thought. And then I remember I went to the movies and I was in karate at the time. Because I remember that I had a karate class the night that I was going to see this, and I was constantly checking my watch when it was in the last 30 minutes of the movie to make sure I wasn't going to be running late. Mm-hmm. But I just remember being totally blown away by the movie. And I mean, it's one of those, there's movies you enjoy, and then there's movies that when you watch them, instantaneously that they're classics and that you're going to always love that movie. And that's what this was for me. I just remember it was so thrilling. The music is classic. It has one of the most popular music scores of all time in terms of it actually, the CD moved it made massive numbers as far as sales, and that's rare for soundtracks.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's probably up there with Titanic as far as popular film scores. And then of course, Russell Crowe's performance, and it was the first time I'd really seen Joaquin Phoenix.
Yes.
And he blew me away.
He really made his bones with this film.
Yeah, and it's a movie that has had such impact on cinema. you can feel it in everything from, Nessie. We talked about Rome. You can feel its influence there. You can feel it in Game of Thrones. In pretty much every sword and sandal type film that's come out since, this has been a major influence.
Yeah, that's something I was going to mention, John. It's Ridley Scott. Every genre that he has ever touched, as far as film goes, whether it's a horror genre, sci-fi genre, fantasy genre, everything that he has touched, he's made the mark on it, and he has set the bar for the next level of it.
Yeah, Lady Starfall, Joaquin Phoenix was actually nominated for Best Supporting Actor. He didn't win, but he was nominated, and I'm very happy for that because it's an amazing performance. And actually, Joffrey is the performance of Joffrey is based off of Commodus, which I kind of love.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Jack Gleason said that in an interview.
Yeah, but you can see it. You can't unsee it once you make that connection. So
yeah, I think you're right. But I will say, Commodus. I preferred Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of that type of character to Jack Gleason's. No shade against Jack Gleason, but yeah, Commodus is. It's like, how can I be so repulsed by a character yet so like I understand him and I can even have some sympathy for him. But I mean, obviously he's a terrible human being and nobody can do creepy like Joaquin Phoenix can do creepy. But like, I understand why he is the way he is, how he got to be, from where he starts in the movie towards all the way to the end. I understand his journey. It's not a pleasant one, but at least I can understand it, and it rings true to me.
Yeah, his is a story of neglected love, and which doesn't absolve him of how awful he is, but you do understand sort of how he processes stuff. And there's a great scene in the extended version of the film, which I didn't actually watch this time around because my favorite is the original theatrical version. But it is a great scene where after Maximus is revealed to still be alive and Commodus goes down sort of into the depths of it's not castle,
the
Colosseum, or wherever it is, and he takes the sword out and slashes at the bust of his father, and you can just feel that rage and that anger. But then he puts the sword down and he embraces it and he hugs it. It's like that dichotomy of hatred for his father and love and wanting to be loved by his father.
Right.
Yeah.
It's sort of the central. I'm sorry, Nessie.
Go ahead.
I was really just agreeing with John.
I was agreeing with you. I was going to agree with John too, because I was going to, he had Marcus Aurelius was not the best father, and he knew it because of the beginning of the movie where he's having that scene with his daughter Lucilla, and they're like, let's just pretend I'm a loving father and you're the loving daughter. It's all a fiction. It's all a fantasy because of how being raised in the imperial court, and your dad's the freaking emperor of Rome. It's just, as we saw in Rome, that the series, it just destroys any type of family cohesiveness, because of the politics. There's no getting away from politics. Family is just a different level, and it's all about politics. So,
yeah. I do love that scene just because of the jokey nature between the two of them. And you can see that they have, a bond, even if maybe it's been strained over the years because, again, of what he has to be in charge of and stuff. But you can see that there's a tender relationship between the two of them, which unfortunately for Commodus, he doesn't have with his father. but
Yeah, and the fact that it's kind of like that vibe where he says he wishes that she'd been born a man because apparently she never disappointed him, or she could.
Or no, he says it where it's a line that initially reads as really funny until he continues on where he says, "If only you'd been born a man," like commenting on her looking out at Maximus. But then of course he continues on and says, "What a Caesar you would have made." And so he very much would have wanted her to continue on, the legacy of.
Well, he lays out the virtues. He lays out the 7 virtues, and when he's Commodus and he are having that last conversation of how he's been such a disappointment to his father because he didn't fulfill any of them. So obviously, in Aurelius's mind, Lucilla did meet his criteria. So that just sets the two of them up to the sibling rivalry between Lucilla and Commodus is just.
Yeah, I mean, I have other things to say too, but I just got to get it out there. I don't even know what the actress's name is that plays Lucilla off the top of my head.
And Connie Nielsen.
Okay. I could not stop seeing Helen, the clueless fangirl, and I don't know why. Did anybody else see Helen's, maybe half the time, just depending on which way her face is turned? I'm like, God
just
dang
the
it.
bone structure.
Yeah, like the facial structure reminded me so much of Helen that I just assumed it was Helen in the movie by the end of it.
Well, I mean, good casting.
Right. Wait, Lady Starfall, actually, you have the wrong Connie there. It is Connie Nielsen, not Britain. Those are 2 different actresses. Just want to make sure.
And I took control for a second, but yes, Amy, you are correct. Although their roles are reversed gender-wise, but yes.
Here we go. There she is.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're talking about. It's the expression very much.
One thing I wanted to point out while you've got this up is the way she's got the dots to make it look like she's got a unibrow, which is historically something that Roman women did. Like a unibrow or like a thin, almost connected eyebrow was considered the beauty standard.
Wow.
So a lot of them used makeup to make it look like they had a unibrow.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Don't try to learn your history from this movie. You'll be very disappointed. But in all other ways, it does actually a pretty good job of capturing what Rome was like.
The flavor of it.
Right.
The scale, the grandness of it.
In that opening scene, I'm looking at I'm armor and weapons. I do know that stuff, and I'm looking and I'm going, that's a correct gladius. It's the right length. It's the right width. It's the right. Their lorica segmentum, the armor that they're wearing, I'm like, it's perfect. Even the helmets were. I am not a scholar of it, but they are approximately appropriate to the time period.
Although I will say that the kind of tactics and
that's where my problem comes in.
They were using. Ridley Scott did say, he even says it in the commentary. He probably didn't do stuff like this, but shit, I thought it would look cool.
Yeah,
and I do have to admit that I know a lot of people are going to take issue with that, but this is one of the reasons why I love Ridley Scott. It's like he has a vision and he's going to go for it. Because I did say in our Slack yesterday, there's history and then there's movie history. And it works.
It really does work too. It's beautiful but if you want to be, I just would like to point out the time or two when it does happen as we come across them, where history might differ from the actual movie. again, artistic license is a thing I strongly believe in, and he did wonderful. But
mean,
like, and
he wasn't doing a documentary.
even down to the way they built their fort, their wooden fortifications were built. I'm like, that's pretty good. But yeah, as soon as the actual battle starts, I'm just like, okay, it looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
But every time somebody slashed with a gladius, I'm like, nope, 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 nope. That's for stabbing. You're supposed to stand in the line and stab the guy. But it is beautifully shot. And again, like, I'm not the most technical guy, although, John, hanging out with you, I've become maybe slightly more aware. And then cinematography has always been a thing that I did look for. Some of the camera movement in this movie is just incredible.
Yes.
There's a lot of like spiraling or circle shots, even that are in motion as people are walking, and the camera is perfectly circling around them. And I'm just like, I don't even know how you would do that. So, like, from a technical aspect behind the camera, God, just Ridley Scott is really good at what he does.
Yeah. Just want to say, because I just noticed that Jared is in our in chat. Wonderful to see you, man. I'm glad you made it. And everybody else. It's so, it is so fun getting to interact with all you guys in the Slack, and then, chat away with you here. The only danger is, like I said, I think it was on the last Here Be Dragons, that I'm in danger of reading the chat too much. Instead of paying attention to the actual stream. But that's a wonderful problem to have.
Well, I've been streaming for a while, John, and one of the things that I've learned is it's perfectly acceptable for you not to know what's going on in the chat, and it's also perfectly acceptable for you to go, you know what, I was reading the chat. Can you say that again? It's part of the live stream format.
But yeah, God, now I lost my train of thought. What I was about Ridley Scott's direction. Yeah, I didn't appreciate it as much like when I first saw the movie, I think, because I wasn't yet in tune to exactly what directors brought overall. Like, I was very, aware of all the different elements, but I wasn't aware of how important the director's vision is in terms of, how a film looks and, how everything comes together, and seeing all the, we'll call them imitators over the years to Gladiator, which is not, saying anything negative about those for anybody who enjoys them, but like some movies that I wasn't quite as fond of as this one, or things like Troy, or Oliver Stone's Alexander, which is interesting, but
that's such a good movie.
But it goes to show you that Ridley Scott is really good at making epics, and he knows what he's doing. He really does, and he has such a unique look to the films he does, and like Kingdom of Heaven is a companion piece to this in a lot of ways, and I do remember, even though the theatrical version of that film is unfortunately kind of butchered, if you watch the director's cut, it's a wonderful, as I said, companion piece to this. And when you see what he brings to an epic after a couple of years of seeing some, less than great imitators, you can totally see his skill at pulling it off, and he understands that balance between drama and scale and all that stuff. But yeah, there's some shots in this movie that are just stunning, and the way he combines music and everything. I just think of that the scene, near the end of the film when Maximus and Commodus are rising up into the Colosseum,
Oh,
and the way that's shot from underneath, and with the light coming in, and then the choral music, and it just makes it such a sort of awe-inspiring moment. And that's all Ridley Scott.
It just looked like a flower opening up from the shot from above. It was just so good.
Can I just say, guys, how much I love This Is a Thing now?
Good
Sorry.
Oh man.
I do want to answer. Somebody asked, "Was it Beth?"
Beth has questions.
Yeah, Beth has questions. The statues are basically the statues of Roman gods, Beth. They were obviously the Romans had a large pantheon, but that's who they were. They were just Roman gods, and it was because the Colosseum was it was built as a monument to the gods in some ways.
Mm-hmm. A monument to the glory of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't want to, obviously, like I said, what's going to be great about this is we're going to jump all around. So I definitely don't want to talk chronologically, but I really have to start at the beginning with the way this film opens up. Just because, I mean, the way it just begins with Russell Crowe's hand, brushing against the wheat field.
On the grass, yeah.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, and it's a sign of Ridley Scott's genius, where you start off the movie very calm and it's got this ethereal quality to it before he plunges us into the heat of battle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the first things I think about when I think about this movie, and it's just, man, it's so beautiful.
And the way it sort of like parallels the very end of the movie too, or foreshadows it, if you want to call it that. I don't know, but and that's not the only time we see that shot at the very beginning and the very end either. There's a couple other places throughout the movie where we do see that hand on the grass, and to me that speaks to the fact that he's a soldier. Death is never far for him, and the fact that before the movie really gets going to do anything else, he's already got one foot in Elysium, so to speak.
Yeah. And for him, the idea of Elysium is home and family. That's all the guy wanted to do from the very beginning of the movie, was to go home. He'd served his time. He could count down to the number of days that he'd been serving the emperor in Germania. And it was just that constant memory and thought of home was just his little safe place that he could go, even in times of war, near death, anytime that he was feeling just sadness and loss later. But in the early stages, that was just his way of staying, reminding himself that he had a reason to live, and a reason to continue, and something to fight for.
Oh man, I'm getting chills over here because I'm a sucker for the sort of like aging man trope in a movie. Logan did it extremely well. This movie does it extremely well. The person who is facing his own age, his own mortality. He's suffered terrible loss, but he has to find a reason to continue to go forward. That's just a movie that resonates with me for probably a lot of obvious reasons. But this movie might be the first one I experienced that really had that going on. Of course, when I first watched it, I was probably 25, 26. So, but even then, I still understood the film sort of as the piece of art that it was. But my recent rewatch, I was just like, God dang, this movie is so good.
Yeah, can we just take a minute to appreciate or not appreciate the fact that this movie is now 20 years old? which is insane. I use this as an example a lot, but I remember when the 20th anniversary of Star Wars happened with the special editions, and from the point of view of me being, a 13-year-old kid at the time, I was like, Star Wars seemed like it was such an old movie, even though I loved it, but it did feel like it was of a completely different time.
Well, it was from before you were born.
Yeah. So now Gladiator is 20 years old, and I was just talking about having memories of sitting in the theater watching it as though it were yesterday. And so,
do you have any sympathy for John feeling old?
None.
Not me neither.
As I recall, sitting in the theater to watch Star Wars. So you really just need to just throw some dirt on me right now, John.
Right.
I was ancient to you at 30. I was 30 years old when this movie came out, when Gladiator came out. So you child of the millennium.
Yeah.
I'm a sweet summer child.
Yeah.
We forgive you, John. We forgive you.
It's okay, because I thought, at that time I thought 50 was ancient, and I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I did too. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting closer to 50 than 40. You know what I mean?
And talking about the film's theatrical release, let me just throw up the poster up there, which is probably one of my favorite posters of all time.
Oh, yeah. I love
a great quote on it too. Oh,
yeah. And it's simplicity. It's like, this is an art that I think studios just don't get these days.
Now, you don't like the Star Wars posters with 1140 dozen characters on there?
And I love his armor in this movie. It is gorgeous. It's so it was so personal for him. The twin horses, that's what we raise horses on my farm in Spain. So yeah, it was just.
Yeah, I mean, it's his armor is very iconic, and that's what you want for a movie like this. You want to look at that stuff and just, I think once you've seen this poster and the armor he wears and stuff, you never really forget that image of Maximus, which is, why it's so wonderful. But so I don't know, what do you guys want to talk about next? Because we can go anywhere.
Okay, I'm going to address Lady Starfall's comment about him being a commander of the Felix Legions. He must have been in for a long time. Never even having been to Rome, I found that odd as well. Need more history. Okay, Maximus is not a real person. Maximus did not exist. Now, Marcus Aurelius is real. Commodus, his son, is real. But the whole movie couldn't happen if it took place in real history, because when Marcus Aurelius first became Caesar, he was going to refuse it unless they made his brother co-Caesar. 10 years later, his brother died, and he made his son Commodus co-Caesar with him. So he couldn't be passed over for Caesar because he already was Caesar.
Yeah.
Marcus Aurelius is the last of the 5, what they call the great emperors in Rome, kind of called his sobriquet is the philosopher king. And generally, he is regarded as being very intelligent, very capable, peace-loving man who never got to have peace. He's portrayed for better, pretty well, I think, by Richard Harris, who I will just call Dumbledore for the rest of this stream.
See, everybody was going on like, why is Dumbledore in this movie? And see, when I went to go see Harry Potter, I'm like, why is Marcus Aurelius in this movie?
Right. Right. Funny. It just depends on like where your sort of frame of reference stems from.
Yeah.
And Commodus, generally speaking, was a pretty terrible person. Commodus was murdered in the bathtub by his servant, strangled to death in the bathtub by his servant.
Great guy.
And that plunged Rome into a period of extreme chaos. The death of Marcus Aurelius is likely the end of the golden age of Rome and the beginning of the end for Rome, because within a couple hundred years, it would be so weak that barbarians would be sacking the city. Yeah, so and one of the things that I like, it's a small thing, but I feel like this might be a plot hole, and I just now thought of it, so maybe you can talk me out of it. Maximus grew up with Commodus. They treat each other like brothers. Marcus Aurelius treats him like a son. How did he never go to Rome, if that's the case?
Well, I do feel like it's kind of ambiguous in terms of Commodus calls him brother, but it's a question of how much that is to put himself on an equal footing with Maximus as far as his father's affections. And I don't know, it's the fact that we don't really see the backstory that I'm willing to kind of let that fudge a little bit. I don't know, it's
probably just now thought of it, and it's not a huge thing.
I mean, it's possible because the Roman court wasn't always centered in Rome in the Claudian emperor's time, which Marcus Aurelius was the last of the Claudian emperors. They had another palace that because they were very, very paranoid. They were afraid of being assassinated, and they were just freaking paranoid, so that they would have their palace on Capri, which wasn't in Rome. It was kind of like out in the country, a little beautiful island. Like Tiberius spent most of his entire reign ruling from Capri. So, and since Marcus Aurelius too had shut down like the gladiatorial games, he wasn't spending as much time there, and was spending his time out in Capri, where it wasn't like as much of a hustle and bustle. I
will say, Stephen, thinking more, there is that line later on where Marcus Aurelius says, you have known each other since you were young. So it is very much that they do go back. But again, I mean, I don't know. It's a question, but
it's a pretty small thing, if I'm being honest. But
maybe he just didn't like to go to the city. Who knows?
Maybe. But it does set up a really fantastic reveal on the Colosseum later in the movie when he gets to see it for the first time. So yeah. Shall I talk more about history, or shall we talk more about the movie?
Let's talk about the movie.
Djimon Honsou. I mean, I'm not going to swear that that's the correct way to pronounce his name, but you know who I'm talking about. The Numidian warrior. God, yes, that's him. God, he's so good in this too. Like, there's nobody in this that's not like crushing it, in my opinion. Of course, Ridley Scott was at this point probably at his prime as a filmmaker, and I would also say, like, so not only did he have experience, but he had also made some really great films up to that point. So I think anybody that wanted to work with him was going to bring their A game. And I'm pretty sure that's the first thing I ever saw Djimon Honsou in. And he's just so good. He's just so good.
Well, he nails this part. I mean, he's so strong and spiritual, and just a great counterbalance to Maximus's role, that they just play off of one another so well.
Yeah, they had great chemistry between the two.
Chemistry. Yeah. It's not like a buddy type whatever. This is just a very deep spiritual connection that they have.
I think some of the most emotional sort of heartwarming moments of the movie are just the scenes of these two guys talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, when
they have such rapport.
Well, and he asks really great, and just the things that they're talking about are resonate. Can they hear you when you talk to them? I mean, like that's a man from one culture who asking another person from another culture because he doesn't understand their view of the afterlife or whatever. But he's like, can you hear them, or can they hear you? What do you say to them? That's a thing that can transcend culture. Where we all love our wives and our children and our mothers and our fathers. It's a very human thing, and it's really heartwarming to see that between those two characters.
Yeah.
I do love when he says, yeah, he's Maximus is, holding the figures of his wife and son, and he's like, what do you say to them? He says, to my son, yeah, I told him to keep his heels up when he's riding his horse. To
Keep
my
your
wife,
down when you're riding your horse.
oh yeah, you're right. To my wife, that is not your business.
Which is the right answer.
Yeah. And then I just love that the movie ends with him.
Mm-hmm. He's got the last bit.
And it's one of the most beautiful endings to a film, just between his performance, just the way he says, not yet.
Not yet.
And the way he sort of walks away, and then the camera rises up, and you have Hans Zimmer's music.
Mm.
And it's just, and the way as it fades out, it holds the sunlight for just an extra second, and then the credits come up, and it's so beautiful.
Okay, John, this might annoy you, but I'm going to point out the score in this film is so good. Like, I really could feel it dragging me along. Like the triumphant battle music, the tense music playing over scenes between gladiators, the creepy feeling you get whenever Commodus is doing Commodus things. I know all this film score talk annoys you, but I just had to put it out there. This really is.
Well, if you just keep it to a limit, Stephen.
There's okay, I understand people who love the film score for the music of it. I've never been that guy. I mean, certain songs, yes, will still get me. But to me, a film score is great when I almost don't notice it. That's when it's best for me, because it matches the emotion of the moment so perfectly that it becomes part of the set dressing, if you will. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm of a different philosophy, but I understand and respect that point of view.
Everybody experiences their art differently, but for me, this was so good that I went from not noticing it to noticing it. Like, I feel like I passed through the valley and got to the other side, because I'm like, God dang, he is nailing. Your music is making my skin crawl. Your music is making me want to jump up with a sword in my hand and go fight. And I'm basically a pacifist, So yeah, just kudos to Hans Zimmer. It was an incredible film score. What can I say?
Yeah, it's a common thing that I do hear, that music should almost not be noticeable, or it's not really a school of thought that I subscribe to, because when I think of great movies, a lot of times they're accompanied by fantastic scores that I do remember the music, that I come out of the theater and I'm like, I have to own that soundtrack.
I got you.
So, and I mean, I think it's different for, like I love film stores. I have a huge
Of course, yeah,
library of film stores. So for me, it's like I walk into a movie expecting to notice the music, and then if I don't, like, I can still appreciate a film store if it's not super memorable, but it accomplishes the job. And sometimes there are film stores that I don't notice, but they're really good at sort of accomplishing the goal of keeping you involved in the drama and all that. But still, man, I love scores that, like, I love that Jurassic Park theme by John Williams. And
John Williams music, I always notice John Williams music.
Yeah.
For but he writes. Okay, but Hans Zimmer and
they're very different.
They're very different. Like I think their ground level approach to doing it is different. Like I feel like John Williams writes songs, whereas Hans Zimmer puts music to the scene. At least in this film.
Yeah, well, and the type of music they do is very different. Hans Zimmer uses a lot of electronics in his scores, and John Williams is very much a classical composer. He writes his scores like they're concert pieces, and he is, he's hard to beat in that regard. And it's the reason why he is so often held up as, as the best at what he does. And Hans Zimmer is just, he's almost like, he's like the rock and roll version sometimes of John Williams, which is not to say that he can't do like full-bodied orchestral music. If you listen to his work, like in The Lion King, which is just so gorgeous and beautiful, and yeah, there's kind of, this movie has like a mixture of the hard rock elements, which is like the battle music, and then the more ethereal stuff like his theme for Maximus, which is different from Maximus basically has two themes. I love that we're getting into scores like this.
I'm just along for the ride on this one, John.
Maximus has his sort of battle theme, which is, you hear it as soon as we cut to the battle in the opening of the film, which sounds like it's reminiscent of Hans Zimmer's work in stuff like The Rock and even Pirates of the Caribbean. But he also has another theme, which is much softer. It's called the Earth theme, which is when Maximus is like praying for his family, and in the
always
scene,
picking up that sand, like he's picking up
the scene near the end between him and Lucilla, when we get the movie kiss, which is one of the great examples of holding off and on a kiss until the climax of the film. And so there's that balance between Zimmer's really aggressive actiony music and his more delicate orchestral music. And one of the most classical moments of the whole story is the scene where, between Commodus and Marcus Aurelius, which climaxes and Commodus killing him. The strings in that scene are just so, it's like from an old movie, like an old classic epic, as if it was, something like, Spartacus, or, something that you'd hear in a very melodramatic older film. And I just love that there's so many different elements. When Hans Zimmer is on fire, man, he brings it. And this is definitely it's my favorite of his scores.
Right on.
Oh, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah. Thanks for keeping it real.
Yep. Let us not forget who we really are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you mind if I move away from music for a minute?
Yeah, I think I've sort of geeked out on music enough
So,
for now.
one of the things that they got really right about historically is that Marcus Aurelius did die in Vindobona, which was a Roman military fort in modern day Vienna. And from there, Maximus rode a horse to his home
Right?
in Spain,
It's Spain.
2,000 miles away.
He
So-
did take he did take an extra horse with him.
He did. And, I'm not saying that it couldn't be done, but like they certainly did not they did not make it seem like the length of it would have taken him months.
Mm-hmm. With a wound that was going bad.
Right. And when he got there, it was still smoking.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
dang, man, if he just spurred that horse a couple more times, he'd have made it.
Yeah. I mean,
well, I do like that it's ambiguous exactly how long it takes.
Right. It is. They don't make it seem like it's a short time.
No.
But they don't let you. They do not let you know that it's probably 4 months or more that it took him to get from Vienna, Austria to Trujillo in Spain. It's a long way,
It's a long walk, dude.
Yeah. I looked on Google Maps and it's like 2,400 kilometers or something like that.
Yeah, it'd be like me trying to, ride a horse to Steven's house.
Actually, I'm going to pull up Google Maps and ask you how
Actually,
long
what you couldn't see on the side of the horse was a jetpack.
Well, it says
I was going to say, did he have Littlefinger's jetpack?
It says you can walk from Vienna to Trujillo in 21 days. Of course, that's with modern roads and stuff, which you wouldn't have. But I guess you could probably do it in a month.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe.
Who wants to go on a walking tour from Vienna, Austria to Trujillo, Spain with me? Anyone?
Actually, I'm totally down for that.
That would actually be really cool.
There's another vacation channel I see coming up.
What do we have? 3 already?
Oh, dream vacations. Why not?
Right.
So yeah, that was a little kind of squishy, and but
it's more than I think about it.
I didn't think about it.
It works for me because it feels like it feels like a genuinely large passage of time. It's not like I didn't feel like it took him just a couple days and that was it. So I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I can see how if the orders to kill Maximus and the orders to kill his family both went out at the same time from Vingeberger, then obviously the messengers or the assassins are just going to be ahead of him. Hi, Sanri.
Hi, Sanri.
So, that is believable that he would get there just a little bit too late, no matter how long it took him to get there. So, and he was.
The movie demands it. It really does.
And the willing suspension of disbelief, we've just got to go with. Yeah. And then he goes from Spain to North Africa. You're like in the back of a wagon. I'm like, where was the boat? But I wasn't really thinking too hard about it.
The thing is, like,
but the movie sort of flashes.
It just gets over
through the way it's edited. You can see that we could have just skipped over that. So
he's in and out of consciousness as he's recovering from an infected wound. So, and the thing is, if you head directly south from Trujillo, you wind up in Gibraltar, you can literally see Africa from there. It's what, 20 miles across or less? I don't even sure, but it's not
insurmountable. I get
right. Like you can cross from Europe to Africa in a single afternoon in a just a boat, without not a modern boat, but like an ancient sailing boat or a galley or whatever.
Maybe they had a ferry.
I like how we're part of the
I mean,
stream
maybe they
now
did.
is talking about feasibility of the
Okay.
travel times.
About travel conditions 2,000 years ago. Yeah, sure.
Right.
Why not?
Well, the thing is, this movie is so good. I'm literally like finding things other than me just going, this actor was awesome and that scene was great. And so I'm just trying to think of something else to talk about, if I'm being honest.
Well, so basically, he goes from the wilds of one end of the empire,
To
the
the
further
other.
to the hinterlands on the extreme opposite end of the empire,
Mhm.
which is really kind of cool. The last place that they would probably look for him, if they, where did Maximus go? Who knows? I don't know. I say he was dead. No, he turns up in Mauritania, on the other side of the empire in some little, backwoods, call us the fighting pit. Not even a, like it could have popped up here where I live.
Let's just take this opportunity, since we've talked about him, traveling to, and he ends up being sold as a gladiator. Let's just talk about this man.
Proximo.
Proximo. Yes, he's such a good character.
Every character in this film has more layers than you originally are led to believe. Every one of them. And
He's
Proximo.
the Geo Marmont of this film.
And Oliver Reed, this was his final film performance. He actually died towards the end of production, to the point where they actually had to use digital trickery to do his final couple moments on screen.
Mhm.
But it worked, and they were able to hold on to his overall performance, and it's a great one. It's like you were just saying, Stephen. I could just say everybody's fantastic.
Yeah. But I guess one of the things that really resonates with me with him is he is an inverse parallel to Maximus in a lot of ways. Where he is the Maximus that took everything that he had, but he was self-interested, whereas Maximus is completely about for Rome and for the people of Rome. So it's really interesting to see how those two, because they're basically the same man with just two different reasons to continue fighting. And I also love that by the end of his story, Proximo sees that egalitarianism and collectivism is better than self-interest, which I think is one of the things that the movie is trying very hard to say.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just set right out in the scene where the gladiator team is in the Colosseum, and Maximus is, they're supposed to lose. That they were set up to lose because they were on the not winning the Carthaginians in this reenactment. So of course,
Right.
in downtown Rome, you're doing a reenactment of one of the major battles of Roman history, and you're not the people who win. So
eyebrows. Sorry, I just had to mention.
Yeah,
eyebrows.
I'm trying to make my.
like this.
God, that guy's eyebrows are so cool. I wish I could do that.
And then he goes out there knowing they're just being sent out there to be slaughtered. That's it. They're just there to die because they're the bad guys. And then he just pulls them together. It's like, if we work together, we can survive this. Like, throw the script out the window. Fuck that script. We're going to get out of this Coliseum alive, or we're going to do our only way out is to win, and maybe we'll survive. And the only way we can win is working together as a unit. So that's just bringing everyone together to work toward the collective.
Which, and maybe complaints about Roman fighting tactics in the opening aside, that actually is very accurate. to
this-
Roman fighting. Fighting as one unit.
Shiltron shield wall.
This particular battle actually had a lot going on for it that was really good. Probably the only complaint I would really have about that entire reenactment, okay, there may be two. It looked like those were Numidian chariots, which would have been on the Carthaginian side.
I know
But
it's
the
subverted.
Romans had chariots too, so I can just, okay, great. They're just chariots being operated by Numidians because Numidians are known for their charioteering.
Yeah.
And the only real complaint I have is as far like when they threw him a sword on horseback. Sorry, that just never happened. Give that man.
But it's such a cool moment.
It's a great shot, but give that man a spear. God dang it! I wish Hollywood would do more spear fighting, which is one of the reasons I love Troy. Has an incredible spear fighting fight. Okay, I'm done talking about Troy. But yeah.
I'm sorry, but like I hear what you're saying, man. But that sword toss is just like it's a prime movie moment. It's like
And see, then
it's fist pumping. Like
then he uses
great.
the sword to direct where everyone is supposed to go. It's not like he can really do that with a spear. I don't know. It just looked cool, Steven.
I mean, I feel you on that. It looked cool. And ultimately, you're making a film to entertain people, not to educate people about historical Roman fighting techniques. But I just always want them to use a spear, and they never do. Spear has been like the weapon of war since the dawn of time. The sword is meant it's not a weapon of war, it's for self-defense. But I get it. Swords are flashy and they look really cool when you've got sword fights. So I forgive it. But,
and also Nessie, I do love the way he uses the sword to direct his men. And again, this all works together with here's John going on about the music again. But yeah, the score is just like it's that action music I was talking about again. Just yes. You're right, Jared. Always obey the rules.
I agree with you. I really do.
Can't argue it.
And then the way the music moves from very aggressive action music, then once the fight is over, and then it transforms into, again, Maximus's, the Earth theme, which is Maximus's, music. And it's just such an emotional, uplifting moment. It's just great.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's kind of cool how they were cast in that as the enemies of Rome. And somewhere in the scripting, they became the heroes, totally representative of what the Roman military was doing using the Roman tactics. It's like they flipped the script. And of course, that is going to win them the favor of the crowd, which is what saves them in the end, because they, at least Maximus saves him, because had they just defeated the other team like they weren't supposed to and done a poor job and nobody cared and they're like, you did crap, the crowd would have turned on them and they would have died where they stood.
Right. But you are right. They fought with traditional Roman infantry tactics, down to like the way they countered the
chariot.
The chariots. Like
Yeah.
that's what they did, and I was very proud of them in that moment. Because I do like as much historical realism as you can feasibly put in while continuing to observe the rule of cool. You know what I mean? You get as close as you can. Get the facts right, then distort them at your leisure.
And
I think that's
and as despicable as Commodus is in this movie, he does get a really good line here, which is, forgive me, the history is a little hazy, Cassius, but don't the barbarians lose the Battle of Carthage? I do love that.
Mm-hmm. I also love that, like, we see that first fight, not the war, but the very first time that Maximus fights in any kind of gladiatorial combat where they're chained together. And I mean, I will say that particular setup is rife with inaccuracies, and it's fine, it's cool, but like we see that one fight, we see him and the big German guy and Juba all fight very well. And the next time we see them fight, like everybody's nodding, Spaniard, Spaniard, Spaniard. They're all like, no, that guy is legit. And it didn't take long for them all to figure it out. Which, yeah, it's great stuff. And yes, Kelly, we already talked about the score a good bit, if I'm being honest. Not that long ago.
They humored me and let me unleash on score talk. So.
Oh yeah, you just missed it. I was just sitting here nodding. Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. Yep, great score.
But anybody wants more of that, we have a film score channel in our Slack. So.
Right. Yeah, John can gush endlessly on Slack about any film score.
And the scene where you see him, he's got the respect of everybody, and he comes out. That's Russell Crowe in his element. That's his big. Are you not entertained?
Yeah, that's his big FU right there.
Yeah, when he comes out and just like jacks everyone, throws the sword into the box, and he's like, I just forgot how much that scene was like. He's practically cursing them, and they're cheering him for it. And I'm just like, oh, what do we got? Bacon? Dang, man.
It's a drive-by baconing.
Yeah. Rock, just pass me some through the internet real quick.
Dude, I wish I could.
Yeah, I wish you could too.
It was really good.
Well, let's see. So hubby watched it with me. He loves Gladiator films.
Yeah, it is really a great film in pretty much every aspect I can think of. Like, again, I'm a history guy. I do love it. Do love like history. I know a good bit about Roman history, but
Henry said hi, Dad.
Like, God, this movie is just, there's nothing wrong with it other than like, don't try to teach a history class with it. That's literally it.
You know where the term being worth your weight in salt come from?
No. For bacon?
Roman times, it was how they were paid in salt.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I just never knew that's where it came from.
Somebody being worth their salt was...
Yeah.
Fun factoid from the Bacon King.
Thank you, sir.
The king of salt and smoke. The meat royale.
It's getting nasty out there. The meat royale. Oh.
We're the Bacon Queen and the Sausage King. We're the meat royal couple.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to think that I'm the
Okay, Rock, I'm going to cut you off right there, man.
Stop.
I'm going to cut you off before this gets too far off the rails.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Because this is John's stream and we're talking about
John.
Gladiator.
That's fine. Oh, I love it.
It is one of the best movies ever. It really is, in my opinion.
Yeah. Again, I can't think of anything that I would say is wrong, bad, subpar, lacking in any way. Not really. Not when you're talking about it just as a piece of fiction. If people are like, that, Rome, I learned from this movie that Rome did X, Y, Z. I'm like, you didn't learn anything from this movie.
See, and the thing for me is, and maybe it's just because I do love history so much, but movies like this, they encourage me to then read about the real history,
right,
and find out more. So even if, and I'd place them in like two separate categories. Like, even though, once I figure out that, okay, so this didn't really happen, it doesn't keep me from enjoying the movie just as much. Just because, like I said, you divide it between history and movie history, and I love movie history.
Right.
But it's really great to pique your interest with stuff like this and then go read about what really happened.
Right.
But this isn't a story about Rome. This is a story about a man of principle losing everything and continuing to find a reason to live, something to fight for, something to continue to live for, to give meaning to a life that had lost all the meaning he thought it would ever have. His land, his wife, his son, all taken from him, his emperor taken from him, his status, everything was taken from him.
But he still didn't lose his sense of self. Exactly.
He stayed true to who he was, and he found something to continue to fight for, which, as you get older, you lose things that are important to you, and some of the things that you defined yourself with lose their meaning, and continuing to find a reason to not just to survive, but to do something that betters the world that you live in the way he did. I think that's kind of at the heart of it too, of what this story is really about.
I do, and he does find something to continue fighting for, but he does have his moments of letting go and having doubt. And I think it's very important to mention, you have this scene between Maximus and Lucilla where she's trying to remind him of that, and he's saying, that man is gone, your brother did his work well, but it's enough to plant a spark. And and then once he gets through the next fight in the arena, I think he's starting to realize what he needs to do, and it's helped along by the fact that his servant has found him, and he sees a way forward.
Right. And the plot that Lucilla tries to get him involved in, the dream that was Rome, he feels like it's the one thing that he can do to honor Marcus Aurelius, who was like a father figure to him, and at the same time avenge or lay to rest the ghosts of his wife and children. So it kind of all serves the same end and gives him just enough of a reason to continue, to to fill into something good, something positive, something to ultimately have a reason to continue.
Right. I don't know. It's just very resonant with me for that reason.
Yeah, I agree. And let's see, Lady Starfall brings up Commodus's fighting skills. Yeah, they do establish that in the beginning, that they show him training with a sword, sort of to lay the groundwork for his later fight, so that he at least conceivably stands a chance against Maximus, because otherwise I don't think we would believe it would be much of a fight. And even so, he still has to play dirty.
I think Jared nailed it right here, that he is very technically skilled, but he doesn't have... John, as someone who took karate for years, it's one thing to be in a dojo where it's all controlled, and it's another thing entirely to be in the street with somebody trying to knock your head off.
Practical application is different from theory.
He was never defending himself. he was learning to fight, like say, technically, theoretically, but those people were trying not to injure the future emperor.
Oh no.
Yes.
And I'm sure if he injured them or killed them accidentally or on purpose while training, it was kind of like lame duck. They were kind of set up to just be targets for him and not really press him for, everything that.
He clearly had some skill.
Oh yeah.
But he didn't have the sort of warrior experience.
Nobody ever tried to kill him for real.
Right. Somebody's coming to take your head off, my man. So you need to, that's completely different.
And I think he knows that just because he has to, stack the deck in his favor by mortally wounding Maximus before the fight even starts.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that actually shows a little bit of street smarts in itself, because there's no such thing as a fair fight whenever you're out there in the arena.
Fair fights are for suckers.
And I do want to also take a moment to say something about the costume design, especially in that scene with Commodus, because he literally looks like he's a Roman statue with the way they have his costume. It looks like he's, sort of chiseled out of stone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With that, which I love.
Right. It's kind of a weird take on the armor of a legionnaire, which he never was, and like the toga of the senator, the emperors and the upper aristocracy would wear. So it's kind of a cool cross mashup, because he really was neither. He didn't have political savvy, and he never really had any military experience either. So it was all really just a sham. Mm-hmm. So that was a costume that he was wearing, and that's it.
He's cosplaying.
He was cosplaying an emperor, military leader who got a fake triumph on the trip back from Germania. How much do they have to pay the actors to stand here and look good? So it was all fake. It was all smoke and mirrors. His entire rulership was just that. It was just a sham.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the historical Commodus was quite as nasty as the film Commodus was, but because I think Joaquin's Commodus was actually way more interested in the goings-on than real life Commodus was. Real life Commodus was like, y'all handle all of that. I'm just going to party. Literally, that's all I want to do.
Yeah. Well, in his first meeting with the Senate, he was like, I'm just not interested in, plague and whatever water issues that they might.
Yeah,
let's have a gladiatorial games. Let's do that.
And that for me is one of the most telling things. He likes to put on the image that, he's the one that's going to set everything straight. But, here the Senate is telling him about the things they need to do to combat the plague that's, spreading around, a certain section of Rome. And he comes back to that by saying,
you don't have to wear a mask.
I'm not going to waste my time reading all the scrolls from the Senate. I'm going to care about the people. And it's like, dude, they're telling you what the people are going through. That's how you help the people. So it just shows
Joffrey moment now that's been mentioned before.
Yeah, it shows that what he really means is that he doesn't want to listen to the Senate.
Yeah.
He's entitled.
Yeah. And he's going to do things his way and what he wants is most important. And what he wants is this artificial spectacle celebrating him.
And he doesn't have any long-term planning at all, because in the extended version, they even have that scene where they talk about how he's selling the grain reserves to pay for the games.
You remember how in Rome, how desperate those grain reserves are to feed a city that size, because they have to dole out their bread and grain rations on, weekly. And without it, literally the population of Rome would starve.
One of the most telling things about that right there that you're talking about is when I think it was the 64th day that they were talking about of the games.
Mm-hmm.
They were out there actually throwing loaves of bread. And, here,
The literal bread and circuses. But the circuses, the bread was paying for the circuses, and then soon it was all going to wear off. The smoke and mirrors. It was all, there's no plan beyond that. So.
And I will say that's one thing about the extended version of the movie is it does kind of up the stakes for why Commodus has to be dealt with.
Right.
Not just as a matter of revenge for Maximus, but in terms of
he's running the city into
Rome.
ruin.
Yeah.
Can I tell you another thing that I really enjoyed about this particular film? There's a lot of Eurocentric storytelling, and there's a lot of sort of sweeping things under the rug sometimes. They did not portray Rome as being the end-all, be-all great society. They were just the most powerful, and it's where the story took place. And yes, there was this sort of idea of being loyal to Rome and what that meant to Maximus in general. But I just really enjoyed how they were like, Rome kind of sucks, y'all. They're not great. It wasn't a very nice place to live unless you were a Roman citizen. If you were anywhere near Rome and you were not a Roman citizen, you were basically maybe worse than a second-class citizen.
You were meat for the machine.
Yes. And
you were used for whatever value you had for the Roman Empire, whether it would be taxes or grain, your farm, all the work of your lands was sent to Rome. Or you became slaved, and your labor was just forced to build or to just die in the arena for entertainment.
I think the way there is a quote, and it's not from this movie, it's not even from this time period. I think this is from the Roman conquest of Cyprus or Crete or something like that. Anyway, they showed up and the Romans were big jerks, put a nail in the side of a tree, and if you're taller than the nail, we just cut your head off. That's what you get for resisting. And they show up and give us your stuff, and they're like, if we give you it, we're going to die. And the Roman response is, the strong do what they will, the weak suffer what they must. And I'm like, that is Rome in a nutshell.
And I just wanted to stop for a second because I just realized that we're already an hour and 20 minutes in, and I hadn't even realized we were that far along. So I'm going to do the mid-roll real quick. Next week, I am going to be talking about Blade Runner 2049, which was my favorite movie of 2017. And I'm going to be doing it with Emmett from Nauticast. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be great. And this coming weekend, we are talking the 1989 Batman on Here Be Dragons.
Literally right here. We are talking about this movie. And
Nessa, you want to talk about what you got coming up?
Oh, yeah. So I had my epic stream yesterday with Sandrixian. Hey, Sandrick, good to see you in the chat. All about dragons, and that was a monster of an outline here. It's like 17 pages, and we still didn't get through everything that we wanted to. At some point in the future, I'm hoping we'll have a part 2 on that, and I'm going to be drafting Steven definitely for that, because he's been, he's got quite a lot to say. So that's far off in the future. 2 weeks from yesterday, I'm going to have Bron Starris and Emma E.L. Smith, who both have just released some very brilliant essays all about colors, black and white, symbolism in A Song of Ice and Fire. So we're going to have those two brilliant minds on and talk about some more of the magical beasts. We're going to talk about unicorns and elephants and, well, it's not technically a beast, but forestry laws, which have to do with being caught red-handed. So that's some mythology and symbolism coming up there. And then 2 weeks from that, if things work out, I'm going to be drafting our own little Amy to come up on screen, and just we're just going to go hog wild on Twisted Monkey Demons and Shanwu Khan. So get ready for some magical monkeys, y'all.
I need that. And I would like to point out that you're having Bron Steris on in a couple of weeks. He will be on with us this Sunday as well to talk about Deflator Mouse.
Deflator Mouse.
Deflator Mouse is the flying, it means flying mouse, and it's just how Germans say bat.
I mean, I can't wait for that because, I mean, Tim Burton Batman, like, that's my Batman. So I'm really psyched for that.
Mine too.
Yeah.
This is the definitive Batman, and I'm sorry, also my definitive Joker. I love Heath Ledger. He was brilliant for what he did with it, but like Jack
Mark Hamill.
All hats off to Mark Hamill. I love the man, you know I do, but I'm sorry. This was my intro to my true introduction to a Joker that wasn't Cesar Romero.
Same. Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And of course, there's, the iconic line, "I'm Batman."
Mm-hmm. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I might just do that about 15 times next week.
Got to get your throat all raspy for that.
I mean, I don't think you'd be like I was a kid growing up on that movie, and yeah, I couldn't help myself. I was constantly saying, "I want you to tell all your friends about me. I'm Batman."
I want you to tell all your friends about me. I'm Batman.
Oh my God! I know you guys have seen Bat Dad.
Maybe I haven't, but maybe I should.
Yes, Henry.
Hi, Henry.
Yeah, I love Mark Hamill. You guys know I do, but like, I'm sorry, I'm always going to go back to Jack Nicholson.
Which, again, it's like, it's not to say that I don't absolutely love Jack Nicholson as Joker.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about this on Sunday.
Okay, that's all right.
I feel like maybe we should talk about Batman on Batman Day.
Yeah, Bat Dad.
Okay, so
Google Bat Dad on YouTube.
But I might watch this Bat Dad before that.
I'll send it to you, Steven.
All right, so we'll move back over to Gladiator.
Yeah, I guess. Fine.
What was your favorite scene in the movie, John? What was your most iconic scene?
I mean, it's the Maximus Decimus Meridius scene. It's such a it's such a take that moment. It's the big hero moment. He's embarrassing Commodus so badly there. He's catching him off guard. Mm-hmm. And God, I'm so predictable at this point, but the music, because that is the most triumphant version of that Maximus battle theme. And it's so glorious and and heroic, and yeah, that's my favorite moment probably. But this is a movie that's filled with favorite moments for me.
Yeah,
so
I'm literally trying to answer the same question. I'm sitting here rocking back and forth going, But I think for me, it's really right before the very end of the film where Commodus is already dead. Maximus is like kind of standing there staggering, and you see him sort of he's walking up to his home and his hands across the grass, and then I can't remember the character's name, but he says something to him, and it's almost like he has to snap back into this world for a moment. And there's this sort of like he is giving his like even in his dying moments, even when he's entering Elysium and about to see his family, he still is trying to spare his final moments for his beloved Rome, to try to finish what he set out to do. You know, he didn't up until his dying breath, even like he falls over and dies. And is it
Lucilla
runs up to him and, you know, your son is safe. And it's like even unto his last breath, he is still trying to work for the betterment of his collective community, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I like that scene the best.
That's a really good scene.
Have any of y'all been to Rome?
No.
Mm-mm.
Nasty.
Okay.
It looks about the same.
But I understand where you're coming from on that too, John, because it's literally like he literally just
it's the mic drop moment.
It is. He led the underdog to victory, then he gets to rip off the helmet and say, you know, oh, you're right. It's pretty top-notch moment.
Yeah, that was like his triumph right then.
Do you have a different answer than either one of those, Nessie?
No, they were great. I love them both. But that was like that was his triumph. It was the beginning of his downfall. It was like peak moment for him, and everything kind of goes a little bit south from there because that was the catalyst, so to speak.
Right.
Like his big reveal means up until that point he was living in anonymity, but he wasn't accomplishing anything other, than, he's just living day by day.
Yeah, I want to cheat and list a second moment. It's right in the beginning of the film when he's walking amongst his men. And just the love and respect they're showing him. It immediately lets you know what this guy's all about and how his men feel about him. And it's the moment that sells the character of Maximus going forward. So I really love that moment too.
So what do you think they're going to do in the sequel?
Well, I mean, you've got Lucius Verus there. I'll
tell you, the sequel I want is Djimon Honsou trying to find his way home.
That would be awesome.
Djimon trying to go home. I would love to see that movie. I digress.
See, and that would actually be a really good movie and something onto itself. So I agree. That would be interesting to see.
I had a good movie idea. All right, I'm going to quit now. Bye, y'all. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
I kept hearing like serious like sequel talk for years, and even talking about. I know there was some stuff out there about Maximus coming back from the dead and crap like that, and it's like, what?
No.
So that's one of those things that I've always been really happy that never materialized.
John, I keep typing on my keyboard instead of my. So I
know, yeah. If you've seen me popping in with some messages, it's actually Steven.
It's actually me. My apologies. I forget that I can't do that when I'm not hosting, or it comes out as his name.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think that he's going to be coming back from the dead anytime soon. Rest in peace. Let him be. But a Juba sequel in a way is a broad word, but it is an excellent story that could be told.
And the things he learned from Maximus could sort of like drive that story. He could remember his old friend that he fought.
And it would be in a way because at this point, his family has to believe that he's dead. you know, he was taken away so many years ago, and rest in peace. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, but Amy, see,
coming back from the dead.
I broke that trust first. Yeah, I don't know if you were
this too.
Yeah, I don't know if you were here for that, Amy, but I impersonated Steven and talked about, you know, how great the Dark Crystal was. So, and your reaction, Steven, was like the best. It was everything I had hoped for, because he was literally like, damn it, John, I might kick you out.
Side note, I have watched 8 episodes of The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. 8.
Yes, and he enjoys stuff about it too.
And it's not terrible. I don't love it, but it's not terrible by any means.
I just started watching The Airbender, so.
Oh, that's better than Dark Crystal. Sorry, John. Not sorry.
Yeah, no, there's some, and there's been some talk in the Slack about actually doing a Last Airbender watch party, as in like me watching it for the first time, but so that everybody can get in on it, and that would be interesting. I'd like to. I don't know how we'd work that, because I tend to move through shows too quickly for that to probably work, but we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see if we can make that work.
Yeah, I, an idiot, did not know that was Dave Filoni. So, just y'all, I'm just having my second nerdhood.
Like Dave Filoni's early work too.
Yeah,
The Last Airbender is the job that got him hired by Lucas.
Got him a better job. Yeah, great job.
Okay. Anyway, we're digressing once again.
I'm sorry. I just want to say one last thing. My cabbages.
Cabbages. Yeah, I watched that one earlier, right before the stream.
Oh, there's more.
The cabbages were a thing.
Cabbage Guy keeps coming back. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I saw the first appearance of Cabbage Guy today. So this morning.
Oh, nice. Anyway, yeah, back to this movie that I really liked.
Yeah,
what have we not talked about? Even the child actor who played Lucius was really good, like believable.
Which again, talking about, I know you guys don't want to hear about this from me, but talking about the passage of time. I remember seeing him a few years ago in Joss Whedon's Much Ado About Nothing, and he's like this grown-up man, and so I'm watching this, I'm like, it's so weird seeing him as a little
20
kid.
years later, yeah. What you been doing for the last 20 years, kid?
But yeah, no, he's really good. I like the stuff between him and Russell Crowe. They're
very, very good together. I mean, there was some like crazy fan theories way back in the day that was actually Lucilla and Maximus's child from their like previous love affair, what have you, and
I can see how that's also, it's kind of confusing, I think, because I know that every time my mom watches the movie, she thinks that that's what the reveal is when he says, my name is Lucius Verus, after my father. And because my mom, is one of those people who can't always keep every name straight. So she's not sure if that's referencing Maximus. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I do have to, point out that that's not actually the case, but we don't know.
It's kind of meant to be ambiguous. Because they had that conversation where, he was born the same year that, he and Maximus's actual son, are about the same age. It's just kind of left, I think, meant to be a little ambiguous so that it makes their interactions with one another.
Oh, by the way, I have to mention that the actress who plays Maximus's wife is actually Ridley Scott's wife.
Oh, nice.
Trivia.
Cool.
So he wrote a movie where his wife is murdered and burned to death and crucified.
Awesome.
I see you, Ridley Scott. Don't think I don't see you.
And she doesn't get any lines either. Just stand there, waves, and dies.
They're still married, though. Secret to Marital success right there.
Yeah. Kill your wife in the movie. There you go.
Right.
All your aggression there. Any just, "Ugh, you left the toothpaste cap off." Ugh.
Now I'm not just going to kill you, but I'm going to burn your body.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was kind of rough. That was kind of rough.
Oh, and just thinking about that scene where Maximus arrives back home and finds the bodies of his wife and child. I am bringing up the music again, folks, but for a different reason, because the score is not just due to the genius of Hans Zimmer, but also Lisa Gerrard, who composed some of the music and does the vocals in the score. And she has an exceptionally beautiful voice, and she contributed wonderfully. I don't think the score would be as good without her contributions. And in that scene, when he arrives back home, we can just feel his pain and his mourning through the music.
Oh God, he was just broken. And he buried them and then essentially was just lying down on their graves to die.
Mm-hmm.
That his life was over. He was just ready to join them. He just gave up.
This movie does what only movies really can do. Like, I felt the fact that I wasn't in the theater watching this, but like I can sort of put myself into what it would be like to be in that theater experience, where you have this beautiful location. The music is like so perfectly in sync with the emotion, and Russell Crowe is out there giving an acting class to everybody. Again, you're right. It's one of the most heart-wrenching scenes in film, but I think that's down to more than just, Russell Crowe adds to that because of his emotionality in the moment. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Lady Starfall. I just dropped a link for Lisa Gerrard's Wikipedia page, so you can take a look, because, like I said, she does just beautiful work in the score for this film.
Oh, excuse me.
But so one scene that we haven't talked about yet is actually the second fight that we see in the Coliseum, which is the one with the famous undefeated Gladiator and the Tigers.
Right.
Once again stacking the deck against Maximus and in an effort to get rid of him, but he's ready for it.
Poor tigers.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm watching this going, silly Romans, that's not what tigers are for.
And again, talking about the costume design, I love this outfit and the helmet with the mask. It's reminiscent of the Excalibur, the faceplate there.
I will say this. Okay, you ready? I just thought of one thing about this movie that I thought was not great. One thing. The editing of the killing of the tiger moment. A little bit clumsy to me, but they're not actually stabbing a tiger to death, so there's a lot of quick cuts where you see the tiger, you see the sword, you see him, you see the tiger, and it's, I don't know. I didn't love it, but short of actually stabbing a tiger to death, I don't know how you do it, how you would make it look good, because they also didn't have the CGI to do full-blown animals in 2000.
Not well. Yeah, not well. It would have looked worse. So it was better the way that they did that with the cut.
Yeah, I mean, if it was done today and they had done it with CGI tigers, I don't think you would have felt the same level of realistic danger. Not that I'm saying, you know, they should always go for what's most dangerous to the cast.
It's like, oh, whatever.
I agree, you know.
But still, you know, I'm glad they did it this way because it's done very well.
I'm curious if they called in like the Tiger King to get these tigers. I wonder where did they get the tigers from?
They called Joe Exotic.
They called Joe Exotic or Doc from, you know.
Thanks for bringing the stream down a few levels.
Hey, this was 2000, man. It could have been. It could have been. That's Doc from, I don't know what his little place was in South Carolina and Myrtle Beach, but he added a lot of tigers into movies. It could have been.
I keep typing on the computer.
This is Steven, guys.
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm answering. Yes, John's last statement. That's me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's me. I would be a waterbender.
I'm going to take my Batman DVD and cover my keyboard.
We're all talking about what kind of bender era we would be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit. I think somebody had a great idea for, like, I think it was Amy. Oh, yeah. Airbenders with gladiators with airbender powers or with bending powers. That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
I will say, okay, one of the things about gladiatorial combat, especially in Rome itself, is that generally speaking, the combatants were of a certain type. They were like the way that they portrayed, you know, buy anybody and I'll just throw them into the meat grinder. That is not what happened. Rome was extremely wealthy and they put on the best of the best. You would train for months before you ever entered the actual Colosseum to fight.
Yes.
And you were basically treated like a prize racehorse. You were cared for, you were well fed, all of that. And then you were also given weapons and armor appropriate to your fighting type, which generally speaking, I don't remember the technical names for them, but you've got like the heavy and the light. And you know, if you want to throw this back to a song of Game of Thrones. Oh, do you know something, Nessie?
A little tidbit. Okay. So there were like character types for each of the fighting styles that they would train in at the gladiatorial schools. And each one of these types was drawn from one of the traditional enemies of the founding of Rome. Like you would have like the Myrmidon, you would have that's the guy with the trident and the net. And each, because Rome was just like city-states beforehand, and as it's expanded and absorbed, it absorbed all of these enemies, but became part of Rome, and they were respected in this way as honored heroes. And so these were the different fighting schools of the gladiatorial style. So each school would train people to these types of fighting styles.
Right. And there was a lot of conversation in Rome proper about which was the best. And often they would take the big man and the fast man and pair them together, a la what happened in the fighting pits of Marine in season 5. Was it season 5? Might have been 6. I don't remember. Yeah.
5.
But, that conversation that Hizdahr Lorak is having with Dario Naharis about the big, you know, the strong man versus the fast man. And that was like hot goss in Rome in 180 AD. Yeah, that was a lot of Roman culture revolved around the Colosseum. I mean, it could seat 50,000 people. You know, consider that. That's a lot of people. That's I mean, that's almost as large as modern sporting venues. And you know, they built it out of rocks. Pretty impressive. But
so I had to look it up.
Okay.
Okay. The fighting types, is the cestus, which fought with spikes embedded in leather wrappings around their hands.
That's a fisty guy.
fought other cestus or occasionally unarmed Noxi. The Murmillo, which is like the similar to the wore a helmet with basic arm and leg protection, but carried a long oblong shield like the Roman legionaries and a gladius short sword.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a Hippomachus, wore a helmet with basic arm and leg protection, but a very small round shield with the point, and carried a spear. The Noxi were not really considered gladiators, but still arena fighters. And these are like your criminals. These were involved in like the mock fights. They are like, here's the scum, go fight this. The Rotarius, no head or leg protection, arm and shoulder guard. They carried the net and the trident and a dagger. Secutor, almost exactly like the Murmillo, but the tight-fitting and smooth helmet to keep the net from catching it, and they commonly fought them. And then the Theriax, there it is. Helmet, basic arm and leg, small shield. It had the curved sword. Yeah.
Like a Kopesh?
Yes. Yeah, curved sword. They fought the Murmillo or the Hippomachus. So it's all these different styles.
It was all these different styles, and they were always paired up against each other, but none of those were represented in that first fight. And like this guy with a bull on his head, I'm like, what are you doing, bro? That thing is going to limit it's offering no protection, and it's extremely limiting your senses. So you deserve to die.
Yep, you're just there as a spectacle. You just got a cool helmet, dude, and they're about to ring your bell.
Right. I mean, look great. Rule of cool. I get it. But I'm just like, nope. This is not what gladiator fighting was like.
Unless they were fighting, it was another one of those reenactment type things, and he was supposedly playing like the Minotaur creature or Perseus against the Minotaur.
I could see that.
Yeah, so they would act out those type of things too as well. So,
but they did look cool. Especially, I really like the pig guy with the tusk on his helmet. That one was like, that's legit, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
pig.
It's not historically legit, but it's rule of cool legit to the point that of course, I'm going to mention it during this stream, but I'm like, I don't hate you for doing it. Not at all.
Yeah, yes, Leaf. Mira does have that specific fighting style that she uses with her trident. Very light.
And speaking of the gladiators, and a minor character I want to throw some love to is I don't remember the character's name, but the big guy who.
The German?
Yeah, German.
Yeah, I don't remember his name either, but yeah.
And he does the funny scene where he gets to, test out the food and then pretend like he's choking to death.
Yeah.
I think, was it Hagen? Was that his name?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Hagen.
Yeah. He even asked him, like, you fought in Germania, huh? I'm like, I'm not sure I want to tell this giant German warrior that, I fought against your people.
Yeah, like I'm probably the reason you got sent here.
But then there's somebody else who's literally like, I served with you at Vindobona. That one of the people in that Carthaginian where they were supposed to lose, one of the others, I served with you at Vindobona. It was like, I'm with you to the end, whatever.
Yeah. And it was kind of sad when, you saw that one guy who's like, I'm a scribe. What am I doing here? I'm like, I write things, I teach, I can't fight. And then you die.
Right.
Fight or die.
Probably both.
Probably
both. Yeah. They're all dead men. All dead men.
Yeah, I'm just running through the list of some characters that we haven't gotten to.
Nobody mentioned Cicero, who I loved. I mean,
the senators.
Cicero was the right hand, was like the aide to Maximus when he was general. Mm-hmm. I've seen that actor before. He was in Braveheart. He's got the really scarred face.
Yeah.
I've seen him.
He's been in a lot.
I've seen him in a few things.
Tommy Flanagan.
Okay.
Yeah. What the heck?
But no, Nessie, speaking of the senators, we have the great Derek Jacobi as I'm getting all the Senator Gracchus.
That's him. Yeah.
And he got some great stuff. I do love that scene between him, Maximus, and Lucilla, where the plan is being formed.
Yeah.
And of course, he was also in the 96 Hamlet, which I discussed a couple weeks ago with Lauren, and he's a phenomenal actor. Although I do remember at the time when I saw this in the theater, I thought this was pretty funny. I was seeing it with one of my best friends, and his friend had come along, and the other friend was saying, "That guy looks like Judi Dench." But
yeah, I'm not sure what else to say. I've said this movie's great about 47 times now. But you know what? Let's go for 4 dozen. This movie is great. It really is. And like, I am a person who, like, I can enjoy something and I can enjoy a thing and still say it's not the best, it's not great, but I still enjoy it. I can take something I love and I can pick apart its flaws. I think this movie is not, there's no such thing as a perfect movie. I stand by that. But god dang it, this movie is just so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a history lover, but like, I forgive your historical inaccuracies because they're really deviating to either A, heighten the visual storytelling that's going on, or B, to serve the actual story of Maximus and what he represents and the journey he's going on. So, like, 10 out of 10, would recommend. I have seen this movie many times, many years ago. I watched it again yesterday. Have forgotten how great it was, and I just came out of it going, this movie's incredible, man. This is not just Ridley Scott, but also like Joaquin Phoenix and Russell Crowe and Djimon Honsou and what's her name? I'm sorry.
Connie Nielsen.
Connie Nielsen. And I'm just like, every one of these people is just crushing it. And their DP is killing it. And their freaking focus puller on their camera is killing it. And I'm sure craft services was kicking ass day in, day out. This film really does have it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's consistently been in my top 5 of all time since I first saw it, and I doubt that's ever going to change. I love this movie through and through.
Yeah, it is. It is nearly it's nearly flawless. There's like the cinematography, the costuming. The costuming is so beautiful.
It's another thing I noticed. Yeah,
it's like even the costumes are telling a story. That is how so good this is. You know, it's a masterpiece. It's a modern masterpiece. 10 out of 10. If you haven't seen this, what are you doing with your life? Go watch it. Right. I will. Yeah, I'll send you $3.99 to get it off of Amazon Prime. Get the extended cut. It's great. That's what I watched.
Yeah, we did talk about Oliver Reed, Lady Starfall, and yeah, he's great. And
yeah, he was so good. I mean, and what a last act.
Yeah. You're going to go out playing like Proximo or the way Proximo went out.
Yeah.
Just that shadows and dust right there at the end where he had outside the gate and they're banging, Proximo, open up. And he just like gently walks across the courtyard. Here's the keys. I'll see you guys later. Like Powerful.
And this is what's so great about that final line, because that's taken from an earlier scene where he's talking with Maximus right before Maximus goes out to fight in the arena.
Yeah.
And, he was scripted to say, shadows and dust, Maximus, but it was unscripted for him to, a couple seconds later, just softly go, shadows and dust. And that was something that he did on his own, and they took that and said, we can use that and have it be his final grace note to give a punctuation mark to his performance there at the end. And that's so great that, obviously he wouldn't have known they were going to be using it in that fashion, but it speaks to his skills and his instincts as an actor to take that little extra moment and to add that. So
yeah,
and it is the perfect final moment. And I'm so happy and grateful that they were able to salvage his performance, because I just think of, what if they couldn't have, and they had to reshoot all that stuff and cast another actor? It would have been heartbreaking, because this is a tremendous performance.
Yeah. It's tour de force all the way through.
Yep. One thing they did get right too that I wanted to acknowledge, I was complaining about, when you're swinging in the arena, fine, swords can be sharpened along the edge, and they can be used as slashing weapons. The Roman soldier did not have a sharp edged sword; it was for stabbing. So, that is what it is. I already said that. But when they take him to execute him, when they take Maximus to execute him, and they have this that is a sword made for beheading. So it should be a long slashing sword. And that they did have those, but that is not a weapon of war as far as the Romans were concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, I think we are going to wrap up in a second here, because I think we've pretty much said, everything. Is there anything else you guys want to mention about the movie?
I think I've said it all, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
no complaints about anything. Just can't say
now,
enough.
It's if I'm really honest, probably no film is perfect, but there are some that get extremely close. And this is one of them for me.
Yeah. This is brushed against perfection.
All right, guys. So just in closing, once again, a reminder that this weekend, all three of us will be on Here Be Dragons along with Bronte, and we'll be discussing 1989's Batman. So we're very excited about that. And then next week, come back and I'll be talking Blade Runner 2049, directed by Denis Villeneuve. I'll be doing that with Emmett from Nauticast, so you're not going to want to miss that. I think they got it, Steven.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He's Batman.
Oh, Batman.
Hey, John, talk about the Slack.
Okay, yeah. If any of you guys aren't in the Slack, you don't know what you're missing. It is by invitation only, so if you want to be in, go ahead and contact us.
Actually, most of the people here are in our Slack group. I really only see one person who's not.
There's a few people.
You're right. Actually, you're right. There's 2 people that I see that are not. But still, yeah, we have a really awesome Slack group. Join it.
It is jumping 24/7. We're always talking about something.
It's
whether having John has this great thing that he's been doing lately, where we're watching movies.
Yeah, we're doing watch parties.
Yep.
And it's absolutely wonderfly.
We're also using that platform to we coordinated like a Zoom hangout also. So
yeah, just regular stuff, hanging out, talking about things. We have a virtual bar we go hang out in all the time. talk crazy stuff.
Seriously, yeah, that is so much fun that I think I was up until like 5 a.m. one night and chatting with some
Just
people.
carousing at the bar.
And I'm like, what on God's earth am I doing up so late? But you just didn't want it to end. So, but okay, yeah. So, most of you guys are there, but if anybody isn't, yeah, you're not going to want to miss it. We're all having a bunch of fun.
Yeah. And if you would like to join, you just need to contact John or Nessie or me and give us your email address, because that is how you are added to a group, and it is invitation only. I think we got 31 members right now, something like that.
Something like that. But there's people there. There's somebody's talking about something all the time.
Unless
and it's people that you know from the chat, people that you're talking to right now.
Exactly.
So we're just continuing the party.
Padar, I am not going to dignify that.
Yeah.
The Knights of Kira are about to assemble.
But yeah, in all honesty, I don't know how, if you don't know any of our social media, I'm not sure, but find us. We're not that hard to find on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram.
Leave us a message in the comment section of any of our videos. Leave us a
Anyway, I've got a thing I've got to get on to as well.
Oh. Well, you go ahead on then.
Yeah. So
Sand rate, God,
I know
you guys have turned ugly here at the end.
Yeah, I know. The crowd is turning, John. It's time to end. Time to end it.
Yeah, we're like,
Jesus, wow.
You got to do that where you got to do that where you start to go up and then go down.
Yeah, no hesitation, just down. Okay, so I guess that's it. We'll see you guys this Sunday, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, y'all.